Good morning, everybody. Brian Vines was the first to comment in the chat. And we got Jake from State Farm, aka Matt, and Mike. Never let the machines win. How is everybody this morning? Well, for those of y'all who may have noticed, I've started a rebranding process of the channel yesterday. I've still got a long way to go to swap out logos and redesign some stuff, but that's in the coming weeks. I'll have more time to do so because, well, my Monday night gigs are, for the moment, gone. So I'll have an extra day to work on stuff. Which means some changes, some progress on some stuff. Good morning, Joe Paddock. You know, hopefully things like finally getting the tornado working and tearing apart and pulling the board out of the Ender 2. Those are things that have to happen in the near future. And I will try when I put a new board in the Ender 2 to not hook it up the way Mike Whaley did yesterday to his MKS board. And he made a nice fireworks show yesterday. So if you didn't check out his video yesterday, there's yeah. There's a spot yesterday where he flipped on the power and made a loud snap, crackle, pop, and filled his room with smoke. Because he inverted the, yes, big game Saturday. Huge. Uh-oh. Hold on just a second. That's the wife. Can't ignore that call. I could, but you know, I like where I live and I like being married and yeah, big game Saturday. Chiefs are taking on the Colts, which is the team I'm afraid of the most that's left in the playoffs. So, it's the one that I think they match up the poorest against. I don't know how many football fans are into 3D printing, because, you know, a lot of the 3D printing folks I talk to, and I try to talk to them about sports, and they're like, I don't follow sports. Yay, sports. I'm mostly a baseball fanatic, and that's getting ready to start up. You know, next month, pitchers and catchers will report, and I don't have a lot to be excited about for the coming season though, because my Royals are gonna suck. They're gonna be bad, so it's gonna be hard to watch. Yeah, Tuesday. I worked a closing shift Monday night, which means getting home at like 4 o'clock Tuesday morning. And so I went to bed about 5:30. By the time I got all, you know, get everything taken care of, got a shower and wound down a little bit, I fell asleep about 5:30. I woke up at 9:30 and was like, yeah, I'm already past stream time. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go fire up the stream late and be extremely exhausted because I was. Um, because my Monday went away. Morning, red light. Because my Monday nights went away for January and February, I've been, looking for pickup gigs, and I found one last Monday. So I haven't found one yet for this coming Monday, so it looks like I may have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off next week. So if that's the case, I'll spend more time working on rebranding the channel, because that is in process. I've got a logo I'm still not in love with, but I like better than my old logo, and the one that's at the top of the screen right now. And printers are still in the same state they were. 3 working, 2 down. But that's largely because I'm a little bit gun shy around electricity. I don't like to work on it when I'm home by myself. So finding a time when I'm not home by myself and I have the time to work on the printer has been challenging. Maybe it'll be less challenging with the extra day off. Because I'm one of those guys that I'm like, look, if I electrocute myself, I want somebody to be there to call an ambulance. So yeah, tornado's still down. I need to take the box completely apart so I can get to everything easier. Yeah, there's nobody near me. That's not a high school yearbook photo. That's one of my music promo photos from like 4 years ago. 4 years ago. Now that's 2019. Had longer hair. Well, I guess it wasn't longer. It was just messed up more like that. And I haven't taken recent promo photos because I don't need them anymore. Now that I'm here in Nashville, they don't care about any of that stuff. At some point, I'll pay for another photo shoot and all that. Also, I got to get myself in shape for another photo shoot. Whenever I have a photo shoot coming up, I'll hit P90X for 90 days before the photo shoot and drop 15, 20 pounds. I'm at my very, very uncomfortable winter weight right now. Morning, Ed. So yeah, I've been working on the tank. I've got a nice section of tread printed. I haven't joined the ends together yet because I don't know how many more I'm going to need before I'm still at that phase. And what's going to suck is the first one when I get it all made, because I'm going to make one tread side first. When I get it all made, I'm actually going to have to stop and count all of the links, because I have no idea how many I've put together here. I know how many I printed, but I don't know how many of them I ended up throwing in the trash, because when assembling them, you have a tendency to break, between 1 and 4 out of every 10 that I print. I have a tendency to break them while I'm putting them together, but they work very, very nicely, as you can see, once they're put together. But I've got that, the tread. I've got 5 of the large bogey wheels. There's no gears or anything in them. They just ride on the tread. We've got 2 geared wheels. and 2 of the small, like, idler wheels that just keep the tread from sagging on top. Nice, Don. So yeah, I've got all that printed out. The next step is to print the part that all the wheels mount on. But I can't do that until I engineer my tread tensioner. And I've drawn up like 4 or 5 different approaches to it. Not sure which one is best. Not sure which one is going to be the easiest to model, because none of them are going to be easy. And so yeah, there's 5 of the large bogey wheels, 2 idler wheels, and 2 drive wheels. 4. And that's 1/2 of the tank. It's going to be enormous. I was looking yesterday, and one of the things I'm going to have to redo is I'm going to have to slice some of the components into multiple pieces and put registration keys and stuff on them, because I sliced, just as a test, for lack of a better term, this axle set for one side in Cura yesterday, and it'll fit on my CR10 S4, but it would not fit on anything smaller. So I'm going to have to break it up into multiple pieces, add registration keys, because I don't want the model, when it becomes available to everybody else, to require them to own a CR10 S4 or Anycubic Chiron or something like that in order to print it. So it's huge. The tank is going to be by far the largest vehicle I've printed to date, and the funny thing is it will be dwarfed by the hauler when I get around to printing it. If I get around to printing it, I'm gonna have to find a filament sponsor to print it, I think, because it's gonna take so much filament. Well, especially this time of year. You know, this time of year is there's not a lot of extra cash laying around. It's the time of year that you start shopping at Aldi instead of Walmart. But that's just because, like, my show last Sunday, solo acoustic show that I do on Sundays, which it's going away at the end of this month until March. So February I may have 4 days in a week off, which will be crazy. I won't know what to do with myself with that much time off. But yeah, the show last Sunday, I had 3 people. I played from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the second floor, solo acoustic, and I had 3 people. And they didn't show up for the first hour and a half, so I spent an hour and a half singing to the bartender. So, sitting on a stool, and you still got to sing for your bass pay, basically, So I'm playing and singing even though there's nobody in the room, because you have to be playing just in case somebody walks past. They'll hear you and come in. But literally nobody was coming up the stairs. Even it was a bad day. It was a bad day. So I think 3 people came in, 2 people went on by to the 3rd floor because they wanted to sing karaoke, because there's karaoke on the 3rd floor. And that was it. It was such a dead day. They only had like 12 people downstairs on the 1st floor, the main stage, for the full band, which is horrible even for a Sunday. But that's just the time of year we're at. And usually the week immediately following New Year's Eve is the worst week of the year. And the reason for that being everybody's spent all their money on Christmas and New Year's traveling and celebrating and all that kind of stuff. So the first week after New Year's, people don't go out. They just don't. Oh yeah, it's exceptionally slow this time of year. We had a decent crowd last Friday, but even it was like the club never got full. We got it to a point where we got about 2/3 full, and people are tipping less because they have less money right now, because everybody's trying to recover from overextending themselves on Christmas. Myself included. But yeah, so working on the tank. Let's go to the screen share. Hit the screen share. Move the chat over here. This is the piece right here that I said I sliced yesterday, and this is where all but one of the wheels will mount to this, and then I've got to develop some sort of idler system back here. And like I said, I sat down with a sketchbook, and I've sketched up 3 or 4 different approaches to it, and none of them are going to be easy. They're all hard, and I'm not sure any of them will work. So I still got to figure out how to attach some sort of idler here to allow the rear wheel to travel in and out a little bit, so that you can tension the tread and then lock it into place. Let me bring back undercarriage. Back. But yesterday I finished joining the Scorpions cab. As you may recognize, that's just the Scorpions cab that has been molded into the upper tank frame. Now, and again, this is a part I'm going to have to split apart, because if this piece wouldn't fit on anything but an S4, definitely this piece won't fit on anything but an S4. So this tank is going to be huge. So I'm going to have to come up with a good logical place to split it and put in a registration key to line it up and glue it together. Here was the piece that I just went ahead and saved out an STL and sliced it just to see. And that's the S4, the CR10 S4 bed. That's the 400 by 400 bed. And you can see it takes up a great deal of it. But that, you know, that's where the 5 bogey wheels will mount. That's the front wheel, the drive gear, front drive gear. And then the tensioner drive gear will be back here. And then the 2 small idler wheels there. And they should just snap on the way that the wheels do for all my designs. Yeah, you could probably angle it at a 45-degree angle and put it on a 300 by 300 bed, but again, I don't want to leave people that have like a, you know, their only printer is a Prusa Mark III, for instance. I don't want to leave them out in the cold and say, well, you can't print my design because you didn't buy a big enough printer. So yeah, I'll have to remedy that situation a little bit. Which I got to go around my ANET A8. No matter what I do, its first layer has a little too much squish. The only way it doesn't have too much squish is if I give it too much space and then it doesn't stick to the bed. So I have to basically just put up with it having a little too much squish and clean off the elephant foot with a deburring tool, which I have. Well, I could clear it off with a knife too, but that's less safe. And it's pretty quick and easy to clean up anyway. Like that, there. So, yeah, that's where we're at with the tank. I still need to, I'm going to put a hatch on top of the turret and a seat down inside that will be attached to the turret and swivel with it. I have not yet merged the missile launchers, and I may not. I may make them separate pieces. I have not hinged the gun yet, so it needs to be hinged so it can move up and down. Let's see what else is left. Oh, I gotta, after I split everything apart, make registration marks, I also have to make some registration marks for assembly for the top half to the undercarriage. You can see here the openings that are made in the side of the undercarriage that the tread assembly will snap onto. Thanks for stopping by, Brian. So, yeah, that's where we're at. So as far as the idler goes, or the, not idler, the tensioner goes, you can see right now that wheel's just floating in space. I think the simplest solution of which that I came up with is to literally just mount its axle on a bar that slides in to the back part here, and then cut some notches in it to allow multiple places for you to slide it back and slide in a pin or a shim just to stop it. And the tension of the tread should keep that pulled together. You know what I'm saying? The tension on the tread should keep that from sliding out. And then the shim would keep the bar from sliding further in. So that's one solution. That's a less functional solution. I was also looking at building a system. Hey, Roy. Yeah, I don't think with the weight of the amount of tension that'll be necessary on the tread and the amount of force that'll be on it, I think it would just keep the spring collapsed all the time. I don't think the spring would be able to spring back from that. Hey, Ben. Glad you stopped in to say hello, man. So, I think the compression spring would, I don't think it would be strong enough. I thought about that. Maybe 2 springs, but then I don't think I have room for 2 springs. The other thing that I thought was maybe like a turnbuckle style connector where you have a threaded piece going into an adjustable like large nut, and then at the end of the nut put a allow it to spin freely, and then put the axle on a slide bar, and it would push that axle out, also not allow it to travel back in as you turned the nut. I think that would be the most functional, because then if you lost some tension in the tread, say as it wore in a little bit, because I think I think as these get rolled around a bit, I think they will gain a little bit of slack, and then you could just take a small wrench and turn that nut slightly to retension the tread. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with that. I think that would be the best solution, but certainly not going to be easy, because I've never, well, and again, it's a challenge. You know, I face different challenges with every model I do, and that would be the new one for this one is, aside from the tank treads, which was a big challenge, would be functional threads. I have not designed any functional threads for any kind of bolt or anything in Blender before. So I'll have to probably watch some tutorials and figure out how to do that. But I think if I did, you know, like a turnbuckle style tensioner where you turn the nut and it pushes the, as it pushes the threaded rod out, it'll push the axle back, and with the tread in place, it'll make the tread tight. That's so a difficult solution, but I think it would be a functional solution. So, yeah. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I think the simplest solution would be just to put a slide bar with some notches that you put a pin in, and the pin stops it from sliding back. The tension of the tread would keep the bar from sliding out. And just put a couple different holes that the pin can go in, so that, you know, if the tread loosens up over time, you could slide it back one more notch and put the pin or shim back in. I don't think that would be as rugged of a solution, but I think it would work. If anybody has any thoughts on that, that's the two that I'm weighing the most heavily right now, is the simple but hopefully functional, because I mean, I think while I think the simple solution would work, at the same point I'm like, well, it'd be kind of cool if I did the more functional solution. Which, as much engineering and work as I've put into this thing to this point, I'd hate to cheapen it by copping out at the very end and cutting a corner. So, I don't know, would that be cutting a corner? And I think I want to design the turret gun so that it can rotate up from here, but it can't rotate down, because I don't want it to get into the canopy. And there will be options with the tank when I get it done. And what I mean by that is, there was the first iteration of the tank. I've got it saved on the first layer. Thanks, Ben. There was the first iteration. That's just a couple little hinged hatches that you'd have to turn the turret to the side to open them up, and there's a couple seats in there. And then I thought, well, I don't necessarily like the look of that. So then I was like, well, you know, if I just did the one hinged hatch, and then I was like, well, what if I went hatchless altogether, like the G.I. Joe Mobat didn't have a hatch or area up here. So I think I will make all 4 top half designs for the body available. Like I said, the biggest thing holding me back right now is tensioning the tread. That's the biggest thing. When I get that figured out, I need to add a hatch to the turret and finish the connection for the turret to the upper body shell, and then make some pegs to peg in the missile launchers, so those can be optional. So make the missile launchers optional. There will be eventually multiple turret options, so people will be able to choose from the turret gun, and they can, if they choose a turret gun, they can choose with or without missiles. And then there will be a missile rack and several different other ideas. I try to make these designs modular so people have options and they can print the version they want to print. See, there you go. Not everybody likes the same things. So Matt says he likes this version. So whenever it became available, if he had this option to print, he could print this one instead of, which I have the armor plates for this one too. I just have them hidden right now. Where they're there. Which again, the armor plates would be optional. If you don't want to hide the tread behind them, you could leave it open. Because I've seen tanks that leave the treads completely open. I've seen tanks that they put the armor plating on the treads. So, you know, again, there are options. Yeah, speaking of guns, where it is? There it is. The one with the Scorpion front end molded into it can use the Scorpion's guns. The Scorpion's Gatling guns. And I'll make several different turret designs as time goes by as well. And so then it'll literally be just a mix and match. You pick the parts you want, you print those, you put the tank together how you want to put it together. No, I do not. I do not. Because if I you know, if I had some connections of any kind to a filament company, I'd have more filament. Because that's one of the things I'm concerned with as I'm moving along with this. I'm like, because I'd like to, and as much as I would love to sit and print every version of the tank. But that's both time and cost prohibitive. And Roy is, as someone who's always one of the first to get to printing my stuff, I'm curious which version you like best. The 2 hatch, the 1 hatch, the no hatch, or the Scorpion. blend. Which the cool thing about this is reusing an existing piece. But once it was kind of joined into the body of the tank that I was designing, it took on a life all of its own. It doesn't, even though it's reusing the same canopy from the Scorpion, I don't think it looks like the Scorpion. Later, Ben. Which, Roy, I did put up the tread on the Patreon files. So patrons can already print the tread. I think I put the drive gears up too. I haven't put the bogey wheels up yet, or the idler wheels. I've just kind of been putting stuff up as I get it deemed completely done, like not going to change anything, not likely to change anything. Like the tread, this is wonderful. I don't foresee a need to change this at all, so I went ahead and put it up. That, and I've had so much fun just playing with the playing with the piece of tread that I've printed. I thought other people might too, so that is available to download and start printing. Cool. And I think different body designs will end up working better with different turrets. And I even thought about making a version of this that was with the offset here and making it even longer and putting an ICBM on it, which would be crazy. So a longer tank with an ICBM on it. But that's the beauty of modular design, is you can take existing pieces and just add to it and totally change what direction it's going. Gonna print some tread. I am going with this military khaki color for my tank, with black tread. And I think the axle assembly I'm going to print. I think I'm going to print it in black as well. And then I'm going to put the armor over it, so you won't really see much of it anyway. Yes, that is the Paramount 3D. Which I really like the color choices they have, and I like how it prints with the disclaimer of you can't print it with Capricorn tubing. If you have Capricorn tubing, it will not work, because their dimensional accuracy is not the best. They've had great customer service. They've had great communication, because when I initially couldn't get it to print on the S4, and I couldn't figure out why, it just kept under extruding. And I sent them a message and said, is there something I'm doing wrong here? I mean, here's the temperature settings I'm using. Here's, the printer I'm printing it on. And they said, no, maybe there's something wrong with the roll. We'll send you another one. And so they sent me a replacement roll. And that was before I bought the calipers. And then when I bought the calipers, I took the roll that I couldn't get to print and started checking it. and there was spots where it got up to 1.93. And the inner diameter on the Capricorn tube, the Capricorn XS tubing that was on the S4, the inner diameter of that is 1.9. So I was trying to push 1.93 filament through a 1.9 inner diameter Bowden tube. Yeah, I haven't had any problems with printing it. After I found out that was the issue, I've been able to print it on my ANET A8, and I've been able to print it on the S4 now that I took the Capricorn tubing off and put the cheapo white tubing back. Huh. Yeah, that's the roll is printing right now on the that I've been printing this with on the ANET A8. But like I said, when I checked the dimensional accuracy, it was there were spots on that particular roll anyway. Now the roll replacement roll they sent me, I haven't even opened it yet. But I had spots on the roll that I'm currently getting to print on the A8 that were up to 1.93 millimeters in diameter, and the direct drive on the A8 seems to be able to handle it. Okay, yeah, the light blue, that probably made the difference. Now I had the dark blue stuff was what was on the S4, and it would not go through it. And like I said, kudos to them, and their customer service was phenomenal. Because like I said, I reached out to them on Twitter and I said I can't get this to print. I haven't had one successful print with it. Everything ends up under extruding, and then nozzle jams and everything else. Am I doing something wrong? So I gave them my temperature settings and all that along with it, and said, please, because I love the color of your filament. And I really want to print with it. And they shot back a message on Twitter immediately and said, maybe there's something wrong with the roll. We haven't had reports of it, having under extrusion problems from anybody else. So maybe you got a bad roll. We'll send you another one. Send us your address. And so they sent me a replacement roll. And then I went and bought my set of calipers and took that roll and started checking it, and it'd be like, okay, 1.79, that's not bad. 1.74, okay, that's okay. And then 1.93, I'm like, whoa, that's like, maybe am I not pushing that together hard enough? And I'd push it together harder, and I did 1.92. I'm like, no, I'm pushing it together as hard as it'll go. It's over 1.9. So the Capricorn XS stuff, the 1.9 inner diameter, that turned out to be the issue. And it was shortly after trying to print that I started having pneumatic couplers failing. And I don't know if the pneumatic couplers failed because of the pressure that the extruder was putting on it, trying to shove the oversized filament through the tubing, and caused the coupler to fail. So when I got the new couplers and put those on, while I was at it, I just went ahead and put the cheapo white Bowden tube back on the S4. And as soon as I did that, the S4 started printing like a dream. Actually started printing better than it ever printed with the Capricorn tube, and that was with any filament. Which I had red filament in at the time. I felt like I was being a mini Ivan Miranda when I prototyped my first bit of tread, because that's the first prototype of the tread there. Because if I'm just testing something, I don't care what color it's printed in. But the last thing I had printed before I printed that was I had finished up printing the red Jeep, so I still had the red loaded. I haven't opened the replacement roll yet. After I discovered why it wasn't printing with the S4, I put the old roll in the A8, and the A8 was able to print it. Because the A8 is much sloppier tolerance-wise. It doesn't seem to care. The A8's kind of sloppier all around, though. So it's printing the stuff, even though, which I can see maybe it was just that section of the filament, and I'll check where it's at right now. 1.69, 1.73, 1.80. So yeah, maybe that's just a bad roll, because right there I got 1.69, 1.73, and 1.80. So the dimensional accuracy is all over the place on that roll. I haven't opened the other one. It's still vacuum sealed up. So I don't know. Maybe that roll, the machine had something go wrong with it. The extruder when they were making that. And something got out of tolerance and allowed that particular roll to be all over the place. So I went from 1.69 to 1.80 in a stretch of filament. That I only checked about that much of it. And with the additional pressures that build up in a Bowden system, I don't even know if 1.80 would have went well through the Capricorn XS stuff. It might have bound up where as it curved through the Bowden tube. And I really do think that the Capricorn tube combined with the out of spec filament is what caused the pneumatic couplers to fail. And so when I put the new pneumatic couplers on it, when I bought the Tornado from Chris Riley, he sent me some extra of the white Bowden tubing. So I just went ahead and cut a good length of that and swapped it out while I was swapping out the couplers. And the S4 was back up and printing like a champ, and has printed great since. So I have to think that had something to do with it. I really do, because that's a lot of pressure. You can imagine what the pneumatic coupler had to be going through when a section of that filament. Thanks, John. And there will be options, man. There will be options for that will totally change the aesthetic depending upon which one you want to print. There's that option with the two hatches. There's a single offset hatch. There's no hatch. And then there's the one where I merged the Scorpion's cab into the body. I can't complain. The price I got them, I'll I'll accept having to fix them. But yeah, both of the printers that I bought from Chris Riley, one was non-functional on arrival, and the other one died shortly after. So I'll get them sorted out. I really do believe the Tornado is just a matter of getting all the voltages set correctly and put it back together, and I think it'll be fine. And the Ender 2 was the unfortunate board burning out, which he couldn't have predicted. There's no way he could have known that. I don't blame him for that in any way. And I don't know, it's perhaps in shipping, some potentiometers got jostled around or something, and that's why the voltages are all out of whack on the Tornado. I don't know. But like I said, I don't like electricity. I don't like jacking with it, and so I gotta wait till somebody else is home just in case I electrocute myself. They can call the ambulance. But I don't blame Chris for any of it. I really don't. Potentiometers could have got jostled around in shipping and changed voltages on the steppers, and it's possible that shipping is what caused the issue on the Ender 2. I mean, it printed right for a while, but maybe something got jostled around in shipping, and a wire's touching someplace it shouldn't have been, and after a certain amount of time it shorted out. Yeah, he does. He feels really bad about it. And I'm like, dude, I don't blame you for it. It's okay. It's cool. And the price he sold them to me for, I'm like, I couldn't have bought the parts for that price. So I couldn't have bought one of the printers. Well, I guess I could have bought a brand new Ender 2 for that price. But I got an Ender 2 and a Tornado that just needs some work. I'll get them put back together. I'll get them up and functioning at some point. And actually, I believe one of the first things I'm going to purchase with Patreon funds is a replacement board for the Ender 2. I'm up to 10 Patreons now at $26 a month, and so that covers the $10 a month I send to Walter and leaves an extra $16 a month in my account. And by the time I get around to it, there should be enough on the account. There's like $40 on there right now. By the time I get around to it, there should be enough on there for me to use the Patreon funds to order the replacement board for the Ender 2. Ryan Buttram is joining the I Not Here party. So then when we go start the Ender 2 rebuild project, I can say that it was made possible by the support of the Patreon supporting the channel. And supporting my designs will also support me fixing the printers. And when I get the Tornado up and going, I'll be able to say it was because somebody sent me a multimeter. Which actually I got sent 2 multimeters. Chris Riley sent me one because he felt bad, and then John. Trolling for Dollars sent me one. So yeah, it seems to be a good enough incentive that people have early access to my designs that it's the Patreon support is growing, and I got to keep cranking out stuff to make it worth their while to do so. But I'm like, for $1 a month, you can get early access and beta access to my stuff. In fact, Roy Holly printed out the the tactical trailer that I was working on before I ever got it finished, and when I realized I was going to have to redesign the way the tongue on the trailer was, I pulled it down even off Patreon. But so as far as I know, Roy's the only one that got the Patreon files to download the trailer without the top, which is still a functional trailer. But so yeah, he's printed out the trailer and has it. There's pictures of it can be found on Twitter of it behind the four-door Jeep with the lift kit that he printed. Which, I keep some things as Patreon exclusives, like the lift kit for the Jeep. So if the people want a lifted VSV. Now your lifted Jeep that you print. See, I still haven't printed the lifted Jeep. I haven't printed a lift kit. It's out there for Patreons, but I've never printed it. Did you print the tires on it with TPU as well? And does it make a difference in how they feel when the tires are larger like that, or is the TPU still pretty stiff? And I was wondering if a stiff TPU could print these treads. It would have to have a pretty tough shore hardness, but I was thinking it would have better grip on a surface too. Even if it did have a tougher shore hardness, and probably be easier to assemble, but also easier to pull apart. But cool. So I have, lots of vehicles kind of in the pipeworks that I plan on designing and getting out there, and as 2019 continues on. I've been pouring all of my time and effort that I have right now, and I didn't have a lot in the past couple weeks, into the tank here. But when I get the tank done, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. I got a project that I won't be able to share with you guys until it's completed. So I won't be able to work on it while on like streams and stuff. So since I'll have to have multiple projects going, because while I'm on a stream, I'll have a project that's moving forward that way, and then when I'm off stream, I'll be working on the project that I can't share. I'm sorry you don't feel well, D. Get some rest, man. So I'll have the project I can't share that I'll work on off streams, and then the next project that I can share will be worked on stream. I just haven't decided which project that is going to be, which one I should move forward. The hauler would be the most fun for me moving forward. And if you don't know what I'm talking about the hauler, it's a combination, again, modular design. It can either be printed as a smaller thing that's an APC, armored personnel carrier, or can be printed as a large hauler. I think that's this one. Yeah. There's the hauler version, which I've done some work on it. It's not anywhere near ready to start printing yet. This one would be the most fun, but also the one that's least likely for anybody to actually want to print it. And the reason I say that is that trailer you see there is almost a meter long. And I know there's been some people that have complained that, you know, they don't want to print the VSV because it's too big. So I need to make some smaller designs as well. And now that I know how to make tank treads, I may make some things like, you know, a snowmobile or something small, fun. I still need to make some sort of little boat or something to put on a trailer and put behind the VSV. I need to work on the trailer, which maybe that's the thing I should do, is work on the tactical trailer. So after I get the tank done, dude, you know how much time and filament that thing's going to take? It's just going to be prohibitive for most people. Put it that way. Most people aren't going to want to put the time, filament, and effort into printing a vehicle that's going to be tractor and trailer will be like 1.5 meters long almost. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I've got to keep that kind of stuff in mind as I'm moving forward, and that not everybody has a big printer, and so yeah, your Battlestar Galactica ship is 85 centimeters long, so you would be able to set that ship on the trailer. Because the trailer is 900 and something. Let me get a measurement on it real quick. Measure from that point to that point. Yeah. Let's segment, show. Oh, it's over a meter. So yeah, 1.05 meters on the bed. So 1,047 millimeters long. And then what's the body of the... There we go. Measurement from that point to... Oh, okay, I've already measured it. And the cab, the truck, the tractor, is 547 millimeters long. Obviously, there's some overlap there. A little bit. So call it 400 millimeters longer than with the... So yeah, it's 1.5 meters long, essentially, in total. Morning, Scalda. So yeah, it'll be, you know, this thing will be huge. God only knows how much filament this would take. A vehicle that's 1.5 meters long. So I'm gonna have to break that trailer up into, you know what, 4 or 5 pieces. Registration marks for all of them. And then to line it all up and glue it together. Okay, I will do it, man. You know, it's gonna happen. It's on the list for this year. The tank jumped up and took the lead as soon as I figured out how to make tread. because this tank has been on the back burner for a long time because I could never make tread. And as soon as I successfully made tread, it was like the tank jumped right to the top immediately. I was like, I got to have a tank. Because initially when I set out to design these vehicles, I wanted a comparable replacement for every G.I. Joe vehicle. Everyone. So I started off with, there's a website called yojo.com, and it's a toy database for G.I. Joes. Let me pull it up here. Come on, get over here. This. My computer's not like trying to doing anything right now. Vehicles. I set out to make my own replacements for pretty much every G.I. Joe vehicle, something that would fulfill that role. And so I started with 1982 when I sat down initially to do this, and I started with the Vamp. So this was my replacement, my answer to the Vamp. Inspired by the Vamp, but I wanted it to be modular, and I wanted it to be better, in my opinion. And that was my goal. That's what I set out to do. So this was my answer to the Vamp. So inspired by, but definitely not the same. They do not look alike, but they serve the same purpose. And so that was what I set out to do as I started making these vehicle designs. Was I wanted my own version to fulfill the jobs and needs of each vehicle. But in the name of modular design and expandable designs and giving people options, yeah, that is the plan, Rand. I will make the trailer sections the same, so that you just print as many of them as you need and make the trailer as long as you need or short as you need. It's kind of how I did the body on the step van. There's an extension panel for the step van, and you can make the step van a long one or a short one. Whether you put the extension panel, you can put two of the extension panels in, and it will be like the big long UPS trucks that you see, or you can leave both the extension panels out, and it can be like the little short step vans that you sometimes see get turned into like ice cream trucks. So yeah, my answer to the Vamp suddenly had lots of options. And here you can see the sport roof, which I really like the profile on the sport roof. Which right now the sport roof is still Patreon exclusive, as well as the functional suspension version, the winch, which I'm toying with. Just like I made the lift kit a Patreon exclusive, I think the winch is going to be a Patreon exclusive. Because I like the idea of keeping little things exclusive to the people who are supporting what I do. So the functional winch, roll some of that out there. So you can see the hook dangling down there. And roll it up. The functional winch will be, I think, is I'm going to leave as a Patreon exclusive. Morning, John. How are you doing today, man? Because eventually, you know, the functional steering and suspension will be available to the public. There's articulation on that. Travel on the suspension. Wheels to turn. You know, eventually that will be public, but I think certain pieces of it I'd like to leave exclusive. So just like the lift kit was left as an exclusive, I think I'm going to leave the winch as an exclusive. So yeah, I started off with my answer to the Vamp, and I ended up with a Jeep that can be printed in many, many different configurations now. For Patreons, it can be with a lift kit, without a lift kit, 2-door, 4-door, sport roof, functional suspension. I have not made a functional suspension 4-door frame yet. But that's all I got to do is redo the frame for the 4-door. And I can make the 4-door have functional suspension. Now, I don't know what all I would have to go through. I have not looked or even put the idea forth yet to do functional suspension with the lift kit. I don't know what all that would entail. But, you know, going into vehicles being modular and having options, you know, there's an optional trunk. Which I never glued my window frames on the doors. So yeah, my answer to the Vamp was to have, which the doors are removable. Roy Holly likes his without the doors on it. And Roy Holly has been responsible for some of these design choices as well. So I thank you for that, Roy. And then Mr. Buttram was responsible for naming the Scorpion, which the Scorpion wasn't made to replace any G.I. Joe vehicle. It was one day it just kind of, this crazy looking thing popped in my head and I had to make it. So, you know, I get sidetracked. You know, squirrel. And this time it was Scorpion. So I get sidetracked. The Hammerhead was born from the Jeep. It was just moving the vertices around on the Jeep just to see how radically different you can make a vehicle just by manipulating the existing model. So this was the Jeep. And I just drug the vertices around, squashed it, stretched it, and pow, whole new vehicle. Which I got to reglue the springs on this one because it popped loose. Reglue that. But yeah, the Scorpion ended up just kind of popping out of my head one day, and I had to make it. So my point being, I started off trying to have an answer to everything that Hasbro had made for G.I. Joe. And I started off with the Vamp, which led to the VSV, which stands for Variable Support Vehicle, by the way. But I would like to, you know, make a trailer that has missiles on it to tow behind the Vamp, just like the MMS. Because the MMS is just it's a trailer that has missiles on it. So at some point, I want to make an answer to that. The tank I'm working on now is my answer to the Mobat. What's going on, Robbie? Sorry. Um, so the tank that I'm designing right now is my answer to that. And I wanted to go through and just vehicle by vehicle have my mind come up with a replacement for everything that Hasbro done. So there's the Ram cycle that I haven't touched, the MMS, the HAL, the Flak. I'll probably never mess with the Jump, because the Jump was just, it never interested me. And then I wanted to go year by year and just kind of answer stuff, but I've got my own ideas and vehicles that pop up along the way, and so they sidetrack me from that goal. So the tank got put on the back burner when I couldn't figure out how to make tank treads. But the tank was one of the first vehicles that I wanted to make, because again, it was the answer to the Mobat. And then I just wanted to go year by year and make my own. But see, the nice thing about the modular nature of my tank is my tank, it will be the answer to the Mobat, but it will also be the answer to the Wolverine. Because all I have to do is put a missile rack on my existing tank. Am I buffering? It says my encoder is overloaded, and it could be because I'm browsing the web right now. I don't know. I keep clicking on stuff. So yeah, my tank is the answer to the Mobat, but it will also answer for the Wolverine in 1983 when I build the missile rack for it. And my missile rack is going to have more than 12 missiles. My big missile rack. There's no porn. No porn. Porn sites have too many viruses. Don't go to porn sites. So yeah. Anyway, this was my answer to the Mobat, to the Wolverine, and the one that would be most direct replacement of the Mobat would be the version with no hatch. $144p. Well, my encoder stopped being overloaded, so maybe you'll recover now. Like the whole time I was clicking around on the Yojo website, it was. OBS was yelling at me that the encoding was overloaded. So maybe it'll clear up now that I got off of Yojo. So yeah, the version with no hatches would be the most direct like the Mobat. The version with 2 hatches would kind of be similar to the Mauler, which they came out with later. And I'll come out with different turrets and stuff that will totally change the way the tank looks and feels. And then I think this one will make the coolest missile rack version, having the canopy here and then have a big missile rack. It'll look cool. So, that means, I've got a long way to go as far as my goal of having something that replaces everything. I've got vehicles to make for years to come, and then we'll be sidetracked by my own design ADHD along the way, and make things like the Hammerhead and the Scorpion. Thanks, John. Appreciate that, man. Like I said, the thing I was most proud of was just getting fully printed, no hardware required, functional tank tread. That joint needs to be loosened up a little bit. Which anybody who decides to print this, like I said, the Patreons can do so already. Just know that once you put the tread together, it works best if you flex it a few times. As soon as you get it put together, just kind of bend it a few times and wear it in a little bit, and then it'll form around stuff pretty easily. And you can see the spots that still need some loosening up when you do this, if whatever doesn't easily wrap around your finger like that one didn't. That one right there. It is. And if you flex it a few times, it loosens up. You'll feel it loosen up. And then it wraps around your finger again. Whoop. Sorry for headphone users that hit the desk. And that hit the desk fairly hard, and as you can see, nothing broke. So once it's together, it's pretty sturdy. It's the assembly process where you're likely to break something. Yeah, well, exactly right. I thought for the longest time, how hard could they be? It's just and then when I sat down and tried to do it, I found out how hard it can be. It's really, really hard. Because the engineering that goes into it is far more complicated than it looks. Because it's also a matter of getting the links on basically like the chain inside just the right length. It's probably something very akin to designing a cable chain from scratch. I could probably do that now that I've done this. There's one hinge there that's not wanting to cooperate. He's not wanting to fit in his home. And it could just be a little piece of support is still present there. And that's exactly what it was. And now it works good. Okay. Thanks for that, John. Appreciate that, man. But yeah, I got when I got the treads working, the tank instantly had to jump back up to the front. I mean, it had to become front and center because it was literally the second vehicle that I set out to make, and it got put on the back burner because I went through that first tread experiment, which some of you guys that have been around since then remember seeing that, and it worked ish, but if you bend it at 90 degrees, the first design I did, if you bend it at 90 degrees, it just came apart. Which I was like, well, it's probably not going to be at 90 degrees on a tank very often, but then I got to thinking, well, what if it binds up? If it binds up and binds at a 90 degree, it gets pulled into a 90 degree angle, it's just going to pop apart. So then I shelved the whole thing. Well, I had to re-engineer it, redesign it. There's a piece of support material I didn't get out of that. That's the thing when you're making so many of these, is you will find little spots of like supports that you forgot to take out when you were assembling them. Thanks, Calda. Appreciate that, man. And maybe when I get all done, I'll put up a poll or something on Twitter and see the general consensus, what everybody likes better, the 2-hatch basic tank, the 1-hatch offset tank, the no-hatch tank, or the one that got merged with the Scorpion. Oh, dude, that's some pretty exclusive company. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I don't consider myself. I'm not even in the same league with those guys as far as like sub count and depth of content. There's not a lot of depth to my content, especially here lately. I've been lazy. I need to come up with another tutorial Tuesday. But I showed you guys, in the previous tutorial Tuesdays, I showed you guys all my real interesting tricks. I guess I've still got some little tricks up my sleeve, but they don't seem that difficult. They seem like things to me that you can do if you can do all the other things that I've shown. Because I'm like, hinges, wheels, tires, multi-material. I'm like, those are the things that were game changers for me. And this is just an adaptation of the hinge. Is all these treads are is a hinge, but it's just a matter of iterating the hinge a couple hundred times till you get it to work just the way it needs to and look the way it needs to. Yeah, I do too. My favorite is the one that got merged with the Scorpion's canopy. And that'll be the version that I print when I print one myself, or the first one I print anyway. Will be this one that got merged with the Scorpion. But what was I going to say? It sidetracked. I have fun doing this stuff, and I hope I'm teaching some people out there some things along the way. Oh, I plan to, man, and yeah, absolutely. One of the things that made me realize how far I'd come in Blender was when Mad Mike asked me to make some adjustments to the bus. He wants to print my bus, and he wanted the rear wheels to be dually wheels. And I was like, well, I can do that, but I was like, I need to rework the wheels and tires on it all together because I've improved the way that I do them since I made that. Well, that was, I didn't realize exactly how much I had improved the axles and wheels until I pulled this up and I opened the original and I went, and the axles that were there were really, really skinny. And I was like, those, if I remember right, those were, I had problems with those just binding up and snapping. And so I'm like, I don't have that problem anymore. So I took the axles from the VSV and brought them over here. And then I thought, well, the axles from the VSV aren't going to work with the old style frame system that I designed. So I was like, well, how can I modify a new frame that will work with the old body? And so that's when I came up with this, like, ladder frame type setup, which the old MVS bodies, they had these pegs that you had a flat piece that you put the pegs through. So you had all these pins to print and put in. And looking back on it, I'm like, what was I thinking? So my answer to update it a little bit was this singular ladder frame that has all the pegs on it built into the frame. So now you print just this one piece, and it replaces printing, I think there would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 frame pieces there. And how many pins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 pins. So this is replacing 14 pins and 4 frame panels. Well, 3.5. So it's 3.5 frame panels and 14 pins that would have had to been printed before has now been replaced with this one piece. That's it, one piece. And then you print these 2 axles and you glue them onto the sides. And I did them as separate pieces for a reason. And it's because axles print better when printed vertically. Axles will always print better when printed vertically because the machine laying down the axle like that as it goes up, it will create a stronger and smoother axle. When you snap it into the wheel, it will roll smoother and be much stronger than if you had the axle laying down on the side. And if I would have tried to make that all one piece, you would have ended up with a bunch of supports. You would have ended up with something like, better for a couple drops of glue and glue those on the sides and done. So yeah, I reworked the bus to have dually rear tires, which this is already on Thingiverse, by the way. To have dually rear tires, a different frame setup, but that made me realize exactly how far I'd come looking back on an old design. And because the bus was the 3rd thing I put on Thingiverse. Yeah, the 3rd thing I put on Thingiverse. I need to go back and revisit the step fan, which, where's it at? Oh, there it is. This was the very first thing I put on Thingiverse. So talk about stepping back in time. Stepping back in time, this is the very first thing I designed and put on Thingiverse. So this is, I modeled this almost 1 year ago. It was February something that I put this on Thingiverse. So I started modeling this in January of last year, January 2018. So as a review of how far I've come in Blender. And this is why I'm telling you guys, just get started and make stuff, and repetition and doing stuff, you will get better. You will figure things out and do things a better way. Because this is the first thing I made. And the only person who's printed it, as far as I know, is Roy Holly. Printed the step van. So here is the step van, which the axles, I need to rework them just like I did the bus. I need to rework these axles and wheels and tires and everything, because as they stand, they're not good, and I know they're not good now. So I need to rework these and remix them and put them up on Thingiverse. And, looking at that grill, that simplistic grill that I made there, and now looking at, by comparison, the most recent grill I designed. It's night and day. Right, yeah, and and I need to revisit it some more. But the problem with revisiting it is I've got one in line to outright replace it. So yeah, this was one of the first things I had designed, and it was kind of inspired by the cardboard one that I had made, the cardboard and foam board one that I had made a couple years ago. And I thought, I'll make one that I can print in plastic. Vehicle design. Because see, what later became the VSV, or what became the VSV you see now, started off as another I remodeled everything, started over, because I realized even at this point, this was actually the first thing I designed. This was designed and never made printable, never made it to the public. This was actually the very first thing I designed. Which wouldn't even be printable. There's so many problems with it that I didn't know were problems until I got a 3D printer. I didn't know that I've done so many things on this wrong and that would never work. Which is what led me to scrapping the whole thing and starting from scratch. Which there are certain design aspects of this that I actually like better than what ended up being the VSV. But yeah, this was the early preliminary design for the VSV. But the wheels and tires and axles and all that are just never would have worked. The attempt at a functional suspension using leaf springs, I printed the leaf springs and printed the axle carriages and the axles, and the leaf springs, after a couple hundred times compressing them, would just snap. No matter how thick, thin, whatever I made, unless they would probably work in TPU, but that's the only way. And I didn't want the limitations of, you have to print this in TPU or it will not work. If you wanted to print the flatbed trailer in one piece, yes, it would have to be printed on the FK1 because it is over a meter in length. But I would love to see if Glenn could print that in one piece. Chris Riley real soon will be able to print it in just 2 pieces because he bought the Folgertech FT6. I'll be looking forward to him doing a build video on that because I really want to see that printer. I really want to see the FT6 at that price. If it turns out to be a good machine at that build volume for that price, it's going to be hard to pass on if it turns out to be a good machine. So yeah, this was the very first VSV. So the very first thing I designed. So here you go, Roy. You've seen where my steering wheels are now. This is a steering wheel a year ago. And then that is a steering wheel now. There's a perfect correlation between how far I've come in Blender in a year. So that's why I'm trying to inspire you guys to get started, because, you know, even when you guys tell me, well, you know, oh, I can make a cube. Okay, well, you saw my steering wheel a year ago, and now you see my steering wheel now. And it was just repetition and learning stuff as I went that made me better and made, you know, me go from that blocky, crappy looking steering wheel that you saw before to this one. What a difference a year makes. Because here we are, one year later, and I didn't start my YouTube channel until March of last year and start sharing what I was doing. So I mean, you guys can go back then. When I started the YouTube channel in March, I was designing. Last March, I was designing the MVS military truck, the big truck. That to this day, as far as I know, Roy Holly is the only one to successfully print. And he printed his in Gator colors and put the Country 3D logos on it and Florida Gator logos. As far as I know, he's the only one to successfully print it. And that's what I was making back in March when I started the YouTube channel. So we go from there. You know, you saw the first VSV that was never printable, never happened, probably never gonna happen, to the step van, then to the MVS truck and the MVS bus, which MVS stood for Modular Vehicle System, which was something I had initially designed to be a interchangeable vehicle system, but it never worked out like I thought it was going to. Right, I redesigned the VSV, and then the MVS truck version 2, which I think I'm going to be able to use the same tactics that I did with designing the tank treads to design a roll-up door. So that's what that's waiting for. It's all done with the exception of a roll-up door that I want to put on it. I want to put a roll-up door like you see on the back of a U-Haul truck. And then I'm going to make some different back ends for it, because I have a plan. A scathingly brilliant plan for a container that is going to go on the back, but that container is going to be interchangeable with something that doesn't exist yet. that's going to be utilized by another design that I have in my head. So yeah, there's version 2 of the truck. Which was also born out of stretching and manipulating the vertices of the VSV. And then I put it on hold because I was like, I want to do a roll-up door. I don't know how to do a roll-up door. So I put it on hold. Well, now that I know how to do tank tread, what's the difference in tank tread and a roll-up door? Just bigger panels and hinges on both sides rather than in the middle. Right? It's the same thing, essentially. And then some rollers that come off the sides, or at least pegs, that would slot into a slot that follows the track of the door, for the door track. So I think I can do the same thing here for... dropped it. I dropped it and not a single link broke. All right. I think I can do the same thing that I did here. Just extend off of it a peg, or yeah, probably just a peg that would slide into a track on either side of the door, so it'll stay in the track and make a door track. And so then these would just have to be something similar to this on both sides of the door. And then once I have that, that's essentially a garage door, which is going to lead to buildings. Buildings are in the future, folks. That's going to happen. A modular building system has been one of my goals from the beginning as well. 2019, I want to make that happen. So we'll have a building system where you print the number of walls you want, and you print the style of walls you want, and they'll have openings for doors, which you can print doors and windows and things like that, and you'll choose which wall layout you want, and then you'll know how many doors and windows to print. You pop those in, the walls will snap together. But I want to make them so that you can put them together and take them back apart easily, so that you can take the building apart, stack it up flat, and it won't take up much space. And then that way it's essentially a build and go play set. So you would just take down your stack of walls and ceilings and floors and snap them together real quick, and you've got a play set for dioramas, for playing, for whatever. Paint them up, make them look nice, things like that. You can have all sorts of fun with them. And garage doors will be a part of that, being able to make a garage door. And so that will be a hurdle that I'll be tackling at the same time as tackling the roll-up door for the truck. When the roll-up door for the truck is done, I've got garage doors. Same thing. So then I'm back to the best way to connect walls together, the best way to connect ceilings and floors to the walls. Again, it's a step-by-step thing. And, as I figure these things out, it makes the next design easier, because I've already got that skill set. I've already figured that problem out. I already have the solution. So whenever I sit down to go into it, I already know exactly how I'm going to approach it. So yeah, you can see where we've come in a year. 1 year. I'm no expert, There's the guys that have been modeling in Blender their whole lives and think where they're at with it. But we've all got to start somewhere. I started with the first version of the VSV, which failed miserably. The first semi-successful vehicle I made was the step van. Roy Holly's the only one to print it. The second vehicle I made was the first MVS truck, which has a whole host of problems that I'm trying to address by redoing the whole thing, which is why I wanted to redo it, because it had a whole host of things that I needed to address, and I thought it'd just be easier at this point with the skills and knowledge I've gained to start over. And so I did. And then it got put on hold because I didn't know how to do roll-up door. But I think tackling tank treads, I'm going to be able to tackle the roll-up door too. So, yeah, anyway, that's where we're at, with that stuff. And it's a matter of progress. You keep doing stuff. You keep plugging away. Right. Yeah, you'd like to start out being an expert, wouldn't you? That'd be nice. The jet is another thing that I got to go back and make happen at some point. And maybe I'll get to a point where I don't like this design because I have those moments, and I'll scrap it and start over. The tank is essentially a start over already, because the first tank was here. I hated it. The turret looked like a elephant nose, but it was where I learned and figured out how to make tank treads. And instead of the multi-tiered system of wheels, I was just going to put the slide axles, just like the VSV axles, along this ridge and just go. Well, and I give people early access. They support the channel and become a Patreon to have early access, but I essentially give the models away for free if you're willing to be patient to wait for them to come to that. The thing that I like about offering it early to Patreons is it lets me know that people believe in what I'm doing, and they're supporting what I do, and the reward for that is being able to get it first. And I struggled with, for a long time, how I ultimately wanted to deliver my content, my creations to the world. I struggled with a long time thinking I need to put them on one of these websites so that charges for it, and people will pay for the downloads. But I'm like, I got to think about the stuff that I already had on Thingiverse. I'm like, there's not that many people downloading it as is. I don't think that's the way to go for me. I think, and I like the model that I've gone with now, as far as if you're supporting the channel and you're supporting my design work, then you get the stuff first. But eventually everybody's going to get it. But I'm going to leave some stuff exclusive for you guys, And again, that's the beauty of modular design, is I can make modular components that are available to just my Patreons, and then still put the general model out for the public. But then my Patreons still have the exclusivity thing going on, and can say, I'm the only one that can print a lift kit for my Jeep. I'm the only one that can print a functional winch for my Jeep. That's I think that's the best model for me. I think that's the business model for me. And I hesitate to even say business model, because I don't do this to make a living. I'm not even trying to make this my living. I've got a job that I love, and I'm never going to quit. A job that I'll be doing, and as long as there's a stage willing to have me and a crowd willing to listen, that's going to be my job. But it doesn't mean I can't put this in a situation to supplement that a little bit and help make ends meet while doing something that I enjoy doing, you know, and help the hobby pay for itself, essentially. That's really where the ultimate goal for this is the hobby to pay for itself. The Patreon support can pay for the filament and the printers and things like that, and then I don't have to worry about, you know, I'm taking money out of taking money out of the bank account to feed the channel and feed the printers, you know. So the ultimate end goal for me, yeah, and I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that it's not that far off on the horizon, is that there's enough Patreon support coming in that to just pay for the hobby and pay to keep the channel running. That way I'm not taking money out of the bank account that I used, you know, that money that got put in there by my job and my wife's job that keeps the lights turned on and the roof overhead. Not taking money away from the money that does that. It'd be two totally separate funds, you know, and that money supports the channel. This money supports me. It's two totally different things, you know, and my family, you know. So the Patreon money, that's exactly what I plan to use it for. Every penny is only for stuff to support the channel, whether that be filament, replacement parts for printers, new printers, you know, if it gets to that point. Well, and I appreciate that, Roy. I really do. You know, you were one of the first to jump on board, and I appreciate that very much. You know, and I'm cranking them out. I've been cranking them out now, but that doesn't mean that I'm always going to be able to crank out, you know, a new model a month or whatever. You know, and that's the way it's been going. Is about one new model a month on average. But that doesn't mean that's going to continue always. I may go 2 or 3 months between having a new model. That's why I don't feel like you know, if someone's supporting, you know, $1 or $2 or $5 a month, whatever the, you know, they are. I think my highest Patreon is $5. You know, I don't feel like I'm shortchanging them, you know, by putting out a model every month or two. You know, I would feel like I was shortchanging you guys if it was taking me more than a month or two to get a model out. 3 at the most. But I would like to see in 2019 if I can stick to having one new vehicle a month. That's my goal, is one new vehicle a month. And maybe I'll surpass that. Last year, or one new vehicle or major model, vehicle or building or whatever the case may be. Last year, I made 8 vehicles. 8 vehicles, the guard shack, one little building, and the dumpster, and the traffic barrier, and the gas pump. You know, so I cranked out about, you know, an average of about a model a month, and I want to hold to that. Can't keep up with me. I want to hold to that, being able to put out about one model a month, and then that way, if I can do one model a month, again, I hate to use the word business model because it's not a business, but the model of I create a model takes me about a month. Patreons have exclusive access to it for about a month. Then it goes public. By the time it goes public, the Patreons are on to their next model. The public is waiting for another model, and it just continues. The cycle continues that way. So I make a model. Patreons have exclusive access to it, and then it goes public. By the time it goes public, I want the Patreons to be able to start printing the next model if they want. So that gives me a month to print it myself and design the next thing. So it kind of, that month that I'm designing it, I'm also, while I'm designing it, usually printing. So I'm printing it or designing it and printing it and putting stuff out on Patreon as I go. That's the beta access part of it. And then I get it done, and then it's exclusive to the Patreons for a month when I get it, what I consider pre-release. It's finished, unless one of the Patreons discovers something that I didn't, that I need to fix. And then it goes out to the public. And if I keep that cycle going, there's always something in the chute. There's always something fresh for the Patreons. There's always something fresh for the public. But the Patreons got it first. And we just keep, cycling like that. That's the plan, the goal, what I'm attempting to do. And there's going to be times that life gets in the way of that, especially in the summertime. Summertime, especially, you get around CMA Fest, for instance, and CMA Fest week. I will be not doing any design work, any printing, anything CMA week. CMA week is nuts for a country music artist in Nashville. Anyhow, so yeah, we've seen where how far I've come in a year, and what I urge you guys to just get started. Just get started. See how far you can come in a year. Just get started. Do stuff. Make stuff. You want to know how to make stuff, go back and watch some of the tutorial vids. I try to keep the tutorial short and at the beginning of the video. And I've went back and started thumbnailing videos. I'm still got a lot to do. But I went back and started thumbnailing videos and updating the style of the channel a little bit. So, yeah. Get out there. Get designing. And see how far you can come in a year. And I appreciate you guys hanging out today, and I appreciate all of you that are supporting the channel. It's never necessary, but always appreciated. Links are below to do that if you're not doing so and you would like to. And we will see you guys in the next one. I believe Mike Whaley is streaming tomorrow. He's got a new format for his channel. He's keeping his streams a little more shorter, concise, and a little more on topic, unlike what I did today. I didn't do so great with the on topic thing, but be sure to check him out, hang out with him. I think he starts his videos a little later. He's running them a little shorter period of time, not doing all day streams anymore. And yeah, I look forward to another great year of designing stuff, sharing it with you guys, and getting your feedback, and we'll see. Maybe we'll be looking back on 2019 at the beginning of 2020, and we'll see how much farther I've come then. And this is a journey. This is an adventure, and we're on it together. And thank you guys for being on this journey with me, and we'll see you next time.